Lecture 6. So we started to look at Canva a little bit, but in this lecture, we're going to really get into that in more detail. So we are also going to be looking at brand kits and templates layers. And so we don't want to just blindly rely on the templates that exist there, but use them intentionally and for all the potential that they have. So our module objectives we've seen already. Today we're going to be focusing on Canva. So it's specifically looking at all the different features there. And so first I'm going to actually use some slides that were part of a Canva template. And so this was a template specifically kind of outlining what a brand kit should include. And so these next couple slides I did not create any of. I literally just selected the design and put these slides in. So they are fairly useful at demonstrating some of the key pieces of a good brand kit. And so it includes logos. So you can see a couple different options here, different sizes, right? And so we see letters, we see bold versus regular text, we see numbers. You can see here there is white space, but it's intentional, right? It continues throughout, and we see the different colors that would be used. See different imagery. So if you are using this professionally, there would be lots of different instances where you would be creating different visuals, right? So PowerPoints, yes, but also ads on Instagram, logos, things that you would set out to people that you want to recruit, you want to sell something to, different people within your field that you want to communicate to, you want to collaborate with. And so that's where you would employ a lot of these different options. And so this is just kind of a brief overview. There were actually a couple other templates of brand kits on Canva that were pretty good. So I would encourage you to go have a look at those. Here's a real life example. So Glossier is a makeup company that probably a lot of you are familiar with. They have a very clear brand. You see that shade of pink, you know what it is. This is actually from their brand book. I will link to it. I'll link to a couple others as well from well-known brands. So you can kind of see how they set out with this kind of clear foundation for what everything that they put out into the world is going to look like. So you can see like there's some stylization here with images to take the place of letters, not overdone, right? Just a few letters makes sense. It's not distracting. We can still understand the meaning. With their text, they've got this stylized line before each of these points. So instead of a traditional bullet point, they are still doing the same thing, but it looks different. It's unique to them, and it's not distracting from the meaning. It's continued out here. So in their titles, they're keeping that formatting. We're still seeing that baby pink throughout. We're seeing all of their different logos, right? And so these are, again, they're different, but they're consistent. And so you still know that it's coming from the same place. So that use of the logo or the word mark is very clear. It will catch somebody's eye immediately. If anybody is likely to be their target audience, they're going to be able to recognize this in seconds, right? So these brand kits, I've given you examples, but what is it? It's the tool that helps you maintain the visual consistency that you need. You need that consistency to build that recognition and the credibility like what I was describing Glossier has. So, their intended audience knows exactly who they are because they have such a strong brand kit. And so you would have a slide deck maybe that keeps all of that for you. So it keeps the color palettes, it keeps the fonts, it keeps the sizes, any of your logos, your backgrounds, the photos that you take that you can use throughout. All of those will be stored in that one place. And that would be something where if you're thinking about like group projects maybe, but when you're working as well with colleagues, everybody could have access to that same brand kit, and that way they would be able to apply it all the time when they're creating different things. So you could have 20 people creating all these different things, but they would still have that cohesiveness, which is essential to kind of building recognition. And so you can do that in Canva for sure. And some of the other tools that you might use to help facilitate all of that are grids, frames, groups, and layers. So I'm going to talk about each of those today in a little bit more detail. The grids we already actually heard about in the last lecture. So we understand what those are for, kind of keeping that order and the alignment consistent. Frames will allow you to crop or shape images. So you can have an image that, is a traditional rectangle image, but then there's all these different frames in Canva that will let you do it in different shapes, which can really add to anything that you're presenting, or start to give you that distinctiveness that you want to have. Groups where you can have multiple things together just makes it easier for any kind of editing or moving or using something over and over. If you group everything together, it keeps it just cohesive. And then layers, sending things front and back. So we'll talk about all of those in more detail. But I also want you to be aware of Canva AI. So I've mentioned that before. They've invested a lot into it, so it's growing rapidly right now. It is currently not a finished product. So it can create videos, it can create images. You can put in a prompt and it will make something. What it makes will vary widely in quality. So I wouldn't rely on this. And you want to think about when you're applying it. There will be instances where it is perfectly permissible for you to have an AI generated image, others where it is not. If it's a presentation for a science lab and you need to have a specific diagram in there and you use AI to do it, that might not be allowed in that class, right? So just because it exists doesn't mean you should use it. When you're using it in work or for fun or places where there are no guidelines put in place for AI usage, it's still not necessarily going to give you a great product. So you just want to be really intentional when you're using it. And with your visual content, organization is always more important than the decoration. And so these tools will help you have that clear organization that then lets the decoration kind of show through. So frames will let you crop your image or your video into different shapes to just add style or structure. They can also act as placeholders. So if you're creating something but you don't have the image yet, you can put in that frame and then you know that it'll be held there. And you can put in your own images or you can use the images from Canva's library, and they just can create something that can be very visually appealing. So here is an example of what it would look like. So you would go to elements in the left-hand column on Canva, just type in frame. That's the easiest way to get them all to show up. And so this is just a sample of the shapes that are available. And I'm going to demonstrate using one with an image here. So I chose the big star. And this is me dragging this picture of the marching band into the star. So what was a rectangular photo will now be plopping into place as this star here. And so this is the finished product. And so this also gives you an example of something I've talked about previously with the quality of your images or the integrity of them. And so I copied and pasted this image in here so you could see how that would be distorted. And so I know that you guys have seen this image before, the band as the outline of West Virginia. It happens regularly, but the image is, it's a very remarkable one, and one that is used in many, many different instances. And so it certainly exists in a higher quality than this. This is horrible, right? And so that's what happens when you copy and paste an image in versus uploading it. So those are frames. They're very useful, but also sometimes a star is not going to be the right graphic. So just because it exists and because it's cool doesn't mean that you should use it. So use them intentionally. Then you have groups. And so this is better for more complex projects or designs when you have lots of different pieces. And so you can group all of these things together. So embeds, that's, if you have a video or an image, you can have shapes, you can have text, all of that you can group together. And it means like you can resize it more easily. So if instead of being all of these different elements where you have to go through one by one, you can have them as a group and then they will all resize or move around and it'll be proportionate, right? So you don't have to worry about keeping the integrity of your design if you have to make it smaller because you need more space for your text. If it's a group, it'll just be one option to make it smaller and it's all taken care of. So you can group and then you can also ungroup. So if you decide that actually you need to change one piece of it, there's still the option to do it. It's very simple to group and ungroup and do that multiple times if you need to. Then we also have layers. And so It is an option from the position box in the toolbar if you select something. And so you can also click on the layers tab. So this is just the position box that I have a screenshot of. If you click on the layers option, you can visualize all the different pieces. But essentially it allows you to select something and move it throughout the page. So move it forward, move it backward, whatever makes sense for you. Sometimes you want to layer things. Maybe you want to have a solid square behind your text. And so you put the square in after you've already put the text in. If you select it, then you can move it backward and the text will be floating on top of it. So this is more of those design pieces, but it also allows you to kind of make changes as you go. So if you haven't thought through the final project or final product when you're working, these layers allow you to do that without having to delete things and add them back in. So very nice tool that you should get used to using. And when we get into the more complex designs possible with Canva, layers become very important for ensuring all of that works well together. So takeaways here are basically that Canva is amazing and lovely and wonderful and can make things so much better than what we were used to with PowerPoint or slides before Canva kind of came into being. But there's also a lot of junk on Canva. So, different templates maybe aren't so great, or maybe even when you have a really solid template, there's pieces of it that aren't good for whatever reason. They don't fit your purpose. They're not meeting accessibility guidelines as they've changed. The colors maybe just are off for what you're working on. So, use them, but edit them for your needs. Make sure that you have cohesion. So thinking about this brand kit, maybe you're not going to go through and make an entire brand kit every time you're working on something. But if you get a template that you kind of like, but it's not perfect, you can go through and make all those changes first and apply them across to every different slide design in the template that exists. And it'll just help you get to that final product a lot faster and ensure that it fits with your visual needs or desires.